just came out, 128. White House likely to pursue federal aid for shale companies hit by oil shock. Coronavirus downturn. We don't have enough tests. People can't determine if they're ill or not. They have to wait days, and they're concerned with the oil companies that pierce the shale and get oil. Is that incredible? Let me tell President Trump what does stop the spread of coronavirus. Steady, smart, scientific, and competent leadership from the government. President Trump and his administration should be putting people before corporations, and they should be focused on taking appropriate steps to keep the American people and their economic security safe. So Speaker Pelosi and I have released proposals that Congress must take to immediately deal with the economic uncertainty that Americans are facing right now. First, we need widespread and free coronavirus testing. The bottlenecks that don't allow the approval of tests, that don't allow states and private labs to do the tests and do them quickly, must end. Testing is key. And we want there to be free coronavirus testing. If you're worried that your doctor will charge you $200 for the test, or even if the test is free, but they'll charge you a fee to go into the hospital or go visit the doctor, and you don't go, and you're walking around spreading the virus, that hurts, and hurts badly. Second, we want paid sick leave and emergency unemployment insurance. Workers should not have to worry about losing their paychecks because of the impacts of coronavirus. If you're not working because you've been laid off, okay, Taylor, you're listening to Chuck. It's okay. If you're not working because you were laid off or because your kid's school is closed and someone has to stay home and watch them, you should get unemployment insurance. That'll get money into the economy where it belongs, the people who are affected, not dropping money out of an airplane and hoping a few dollars land on the people who are affected. So you need that. We need food security. We must expand SNAP and WIC, school lunch, and other initiatives. So if you're not working, a lot of the kids who have the school lunches, that's the best meal, sometimes the only meal they get. We got to make sure that they can get them. And we want to make sure that small businesses can continue. We believe that there should be loans and even grants. Some businesses don't have enough income right now to repay the loans, so that these small businesses, which have a cash crunch, are not drawn down and go bankrupt while they have healthy businesses, except for the coronavirus. This should not be a partisan issue. We want to solve the problem. We're ready to work with the administration on a coordinated, government-wide, focused plan to respond to the coronavirus. Last week, we put together an emergency funding bill. It largely came not from the President, not from the White House, but from the House and Senate, Democrats and Republicans. I proposed $8.5 billion. The President proposed $1.2 billion. We ended up at the $8.5 because that was what was needed. But the needless chaos, and the bill passed 96-1 to show you we can do this in a bipartisan way. But the needless chaos within the Trump administration is unhelpful, is hampering the government's response. So, first, to the administration, prioritize the health and safety of American workers and their families as number one. Second, stopping the spread of the coronavirus is the best way to keep the American people safe and ensure economic security. Senator Wyden.
Thank you, Leader Schumer. And I think the bottom line is President Trump is not going to be able to wiggle out of a public health crisis by doling out another big batch of tax cuts to his investor buddies. We are not going to allow a rerun of the 2017 tax bill, which was disproportionately stacked to those big investors. Here's the bottom line. Consumers now drive 2/3 of all economic activity in America. So what we are going to do is focus like a laser on the working families who are walking an economic tightrope today. These are people who are balancing the rent bill against the food bill against out-of-pocket health costs. What we're going to be doing is focusing like a laser on those working families. Now, many of you have called the Finance Committee and asked questions about the payroll tax. And I want to be clear what I think some of the issues are. And as Senator Schumer said, we on the Finance Committee always try to work in a bipartisan way. We tried that on the tax bill. But here are some of the concerns on the payroll tax. It doesn't do a lot for people who rely on tips. It doesn't do much for people who have lost shifts. It does very little for folks who don't have sick leave. So there are important issues to work through on the payroll tax. And if you want to show how to, again, really zero in on workers, you will focus on the worker share of the payroll tax and make that the centerpiece of what you try to do in the payroll area.
Thank you for being here. As you know, the number of confirmed cases of coronavirus continues to grow exponentially. My home state of New York is now the state with the highest number of coronavirus cases, almost 200. Together with Senator Schumer and Governor Cuomo and the congressional delegation and all of our state and local elected officials, we have tried to inform our constituents, guided them with publicly available resources that the CDC and our health department publishes, and asking them to use common sense things like washing your hands, stay home if you're sick. However, yesterday demonstrated that the effects of the coronavirus are moving well beyond the public health sphere. In New York City, many of our schools have closed, suspended classes. Several universities have done the same. In Westchester County, the Scarsdale Public Schools announced that they will close for the week. As schools and workplaces close, those who do not have paid sick days, if they have to stay home with a loved one or a child whose school has been closed, what that means is they may lose their job, they may lose a paycheck. Imagine having to leave a sick child at home because you cannot miss work, or a loved one. Imagine your mother or father in an assisted living facility that has now said you can no longer visit, you can only wave to them through a window. Imagine the crisis that is being felt by families all across our country and certainly in my state. It's an impossible choice. So every time a person has to forego a paycheck or lose their job, that is a failure of government. President Trump has dropped the ball. My colleagues and I support a bill that will ensure that all employees immediately receive 2 weeks of paid sick leave. This is essential. Imagine all the workers who have no paid sick days. Imagine they have to go to work anyway, serving food or working in a restaurant or in a hotel or in a conference center, not being able to take the days off if they are sick or to meet the needs of a loved one who has to stay home. This would give our workers the ability to care for themselves and their loved ones, and it would keep the community safe. But as you've heard from Senator Schumer and Senator Wyden, President Trump is focused on helping corporations. Corporations are not the ones who stay home when your child has a spiked fever of 104. Corporations are not the ones who can no longer visit their mothers and fathers in assisted living facilities. Corporations are not the ones who are trying to care for our loved ones who are deeply sick. Misplaced priorities once again. We need to support our families, our communities, our workers. We need access to emergency paid sick leave immediately. Democrats stand ready to work with President Trump to get this done.
Senator Murphy. Thank you very much, Senator Schumer. I was proud to be in the Senate chamber last week when we stood together, Republicans and Democrats, and passed emergency funding to help begin the fight against this epidemic. We showed that we can take the politics out of this issue of life or death importance. And then on Friday, the president went to the Centers for Disease Control with a campaign hat on and made it clear that he sees this as a political problem for him, not a public health crisis for the people that he is sworn to protect. People in Connecticut are very worried. They're worried because this president has not invested in tests that allows us to know where the disease exists and where it doesn't. People in Connecticut are worried because the president seems more interested in giving tax breaks to oil companies than helping them when they get laid off from their job. People in Connecticut are worried because there is no meaningful guidance coming from the CDC on how you close a school, when you close a business, leaving local leaders to make the decisions by themselves. And people in Connecticut are worried because they are watching a president rely on the ACA to require insurance companies to cover the tests, while at the same time, he's sending his lawyers to court to try to destroy the entirety of the ACA. They're worried that they are going to lose their health care coverage because of the president's campaign of sabotage against the Affordable Care Act at the very moment where they need the health care the most. This president needs to stop viewing this epidemic as a political problem. He needs to stop viewing it as an opportunity to help his Wall Street friends and his oil industry friends. He needs to start viewing it as the public health crisis that it is.
Thank you. Questions?
You mentioned that there are issues to work through on the payroll tax. Does that mean that you're open to negotiating?
I didn't say that. I did not say that. What I said, well, the bottom line is very simple. We want focus on health care and the tests and people who are affected, and economic relief should go to the people who are affected as well, not an across-the-board thing. I heard in the Republican lunch, secondhand, President Trump said, we'll keep the payroll tax till after the election because we don't want people to see it to go down before the election. This is not an election document. This is a document dealing with a crisis in America.
Leader, can I just follow that up? Because the leader and I feel very strongly that this has got to go to the people who are walking an economic tightrope. That's why I said the people who are balancing the rent bill against the fuel bill, against the food bill.
Have work now.
We're going to make everything we do, as I said, with that laser kind of focus on those kind of people who are hurting now, and that's going to apply to payroll and everything else.
Leadership.
Yes.
Are you worried at all about the members who are traveling back and forth to D.C., and do you think we need an extended recess?
Okay, we're waiting for guidance from Dr. Monahan. This should be a decision not made by the political people, but by the health people, the people who know health care. And Dr. Monahan is supposed to issue some guidance for us shortly. That's what we'll go by.
Leader
Yep.
Schumer, it does sound though, you guys are going to fight for these, bread and butter issues
Yes.
that pertains to
Yes.
the coronavirus. Treasury Secretary is meeting with the Speaker of the House right now. There inevitably would be horse trading. What would you guys be willing to?
Look, this is not
tax breaks.
Okay.
If
If you say this is inevitably horse trading, this is a bill about a health crisis. We want to focus on the health crisis, and everyone should be doing that. Democrats, Republicans, liberals, conservatives. This is a health crisis in America. This is not time to start putting your political agenda on the table, things like this.
Senator,
Yes.
President Trump earlier was asked if he would fire anyone as the number of cases is spiking since this weekend. He said instead, he didn't answer that question, but he said that Democratic governors have praised his task force and the federal government's work.
This is not, let me just say,
Someone should be fired?
this is not about President Trump and whether, this is about solving a health care crisis, and so far he has been notably absent from constructive activity solving this problem.
Senator, can you respond to the fact that Richard Grinnell is not going to appear before Congress for this briefing on elections?
Look, I think that the idea of politicizing something that is like the CIA and the intelligence agencies that have done such amazing work for America, and Democratic and Republican administrations, whether it's H.W. Bush, Ronald Reagan, or W. Bush, whether it's Clinton or Carter or Obama, respected the integrity of these agencies, that they could speak truth to power. Donald Trump is destroying that, and that will have great effect on the security of the American people. Nope, that's enough. That's enough. You know, one at a time. I just mentioned it a few times. That's what I feel.
Senator, New York State, are you comfortable with prisoners in New York State make just pennies? Are you comfortable with them being the ones?
I haven't seen what Governor Cuomo is doing on that specific issue. I heard about it, so I couldn't comment on it. Yes. Again, I don't know the medical details. I'm sure he relied on a lot of medical people. I would defer to them. Thank you, everybody.